I'm not dealing with cops.
It's code you live by.
We talking vehicular warfare.
For drug dealers,
It's a whole different level.
We need cars.
Letty's dead.
I need to know for sure.
Then I'm going with you.
Family. Makes you predictable.
At least when I go, I know what it's. Make sure they're fast. Cool.
Maybe the lady was gone.
Don't turn it back on.
Whenever I want. I can reach out and break you.
Ride or die.
They got a tank.
Hi viewers, in this video, we will dive into the movie Fast and Furious 6. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie production detail and box office performance. Finally, we will share the review and personal reactions of the movie. So let's begin with the movie. Story: Fast and Furious. 6 title on screen as Furious 6, and F6 is a 2013 American action. Highest film directed by Justin Lin and written by Chris Morgan. A film was a sequel to the 2011 film Fast 5 and a 6th installment of The Fast and the Furious. Potter, Vin Diesel, Michael Rojas, Jordana Breer, Tareen Gibson, and Dean Gensis. Their role in the film and follows Dominic Turturro, Brian O'Connor, and the team are offer a ministry for their past crimes in exchange for apprehending a mercenary organization, one member of which is Tror, Pume's deceased lover and wife Lady R's. After departing from the overstreet racing theme of previous installments in Fast 5, development of Fast and Few. 6 continue this featuring spy and adventure element, and this hopes to increase the series' audience departing from the film. Begin in April 2011 with Diesel and L returning that Jane discussion, Arus filming alongside a potential 7th installment. These are amended once principal photography began in July 2012, which lasted until that December with filming locations, including Los Angeles, London, Glasgow, and the Canary Islands. The film was premiered on London in May 7, 2013, and on United States in theatrical on May 24, 2013. Fast and Foo 6 receives positive reviews, who presses Diesel performances and action sequences with box office success. Crossing $7.87 million against the budget is $160 million, which was a 6th highest cross film of 2013. Fast and F6 was a final film. Was also an actor memory named Paul Walker, who has died in 2013, dedicated as an idea entertaining F7 release in a TE 2015 in United States. So let's begin with the movie story following their successful highest in Brazil. Dominic Dom Turturro and his professional criminal, True, has fled around the world and are living peacefully. Dom lives with Alen. No, his sister Mia lives with Brian Owner and their son Jack. Gilja Shar and Hen are together at Ramen. Pedanta Parker live in luxury. Meanwhile, DSS agents Luke Hobbs and Riley Hicks investigate the destruction of Russian military convoy by a crew led by the former British SS. Major and Special Ops soldier on Shah Hobbs persuades Drum to help Captain Shah by showing him a photo of his possibly murdered wife. Lady Orr's Dom and his crew accept the mission in exchange for their amnesty and allowing them to return to the United States in London. Shah's head out is found, but this is revealed to be a trap, destructing them and the police, while Shah's crew performed a heist at an Interpol building, Shay F, by a custom car, detonating his hideout and disabling most of the poli, leaving Dom Brian Tolje, Roman Han Ghastly Hobbs, and Riley to pursue him. Lady arrives to help Shah, showing Dom without hesitation. Before escaping back at their headquarters, Hobbs tells Dom's crew that Shaw is stealing components to create a deadly device that can shut down all power, intending to sell it to the highest bidder. Meanwhile, investigation into the opposing crew reveals Elle's relationship with Dom, but she is revealed to be suffering from amnesia. Dominic's crew learned that Shaw is connected to a true lord, who was imprisoned by Brian Arobaraga, while Tage Precious several car. From an option for the mission, Brian returned to Los Angeles as a prison to question Braga, who sees Let survives the explosion that seemingly killed her as Shoche look her in after discovering her amnesia. With FBI's help, Brian is released from prison, regrouping with the team in London. Dom talent lady in a street racing competition. Afterward, he returns a cross necklace he had kept after Let Le Chat offered Dom a chance to walk away, threatening to otherwise hurt his family, but Dom refuses. Detrack Shaw's next attack to a Spanish naze, Shaw screw assault, a highway military convoy, crying a computer chip to complete this device. Dom screws interferes, while Shaw combined by Lit Commander's attack. Destroying cars on Tar, O'Brien, and Roman flick the tank before it causes further damage, resulting in LTY being thrown from the vehicle. Tom saves our Eshoy and his crew are captured, but reveal Mia has been kidnapped by Shaw henchmen. VG and Claus Hops is forced to release Shaw, and Riley revealed to be Shaw's convert. ACC Copley leaves with him. Let Jesus to remain with Dom. Shaw's GR bought her moving and 124 on an exceptional long runway. As Dom's to gives chase, Dom Lady and Brian board the craft. Brian rescues Mia and escapes the plane, attempts to take off, but is held down by the X's weight. As the rest of the team tether the plane to their vehicle, Giselle sacrifice to save Han from Shaw's henchman Adolph's son. LTI kills Riley and escapes with Hops to safety. But Dom pursues Shaw and the computer chip as the plane crashes into the ground. Shaw is thrown from it, and Dom drive a Charger out of the exploding plane. Dom reunite with the crews and give the ship to Hops to scare their prawn. Dom and the others return to his old family home in Los Angeles, where Dom and his crew have a gathering to share a meal. Hobbs and Allen arrive to confirm the crew's freedom. Allen accepts that Dom leaves Lady in a mid-credit scene. H is involved in a car chase when he is sharely broadsided by an oncoming car. The driver walks away after Let his cross necklace by the crash engine call Storm, saying, Dominic Turtot, you don't know me, but you are about to, as Hanser explores, apparently killing Han. Main cast Pow, Walker A.R. Brand, O'Connor Van Diesel as Dominic Turtot, Di Gibson as Raman Paris, Lakis as Stage Parker, Jordana Brer as Mtro, Mel Rocket as LTI artist, Kong as Hole, Haji as Gleerlians, as Ona Daven Jensen as Lee Hops, Gina Kino as Really, Hicks John Artis as RTOBR Shia, Vam as Toss Elsa as Alan Ness, David Ala as Laurie Kim, Kit as CLA Joy Tallis. As Jaw Development in February 2010, Diesel confirmed that production of a Fast 5 was culminating, and also announced that a 6th installment was being planned in January 2011. Producer Neil H. Martis and me invents. In my mind, we already know what the 6th movie is. We have already been talking about it and I have had numerous conversation about what that might be. And we starting to get serious about it right now. We just finished Fast 5 like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we just needed a break. And now we are going to start confusing on that. In April 2011, it was confirmed that Chris Morgan had already begun work on a script for a potential 6th film at the Beist of Studios. It was also confirmed that Universal intended to transform the series from street racing action into a series of high films with car chases in the vein of Italian Job 1969 and Finch Connection 1971 with Fast 5 as a transitional movie. Universal Chairman Adam Fogan said that the question putting Fast and 5 together for us was, can we take it out of being a pursue car culture movie and into being a true action franchise in the spirit of those Reveiw made 10 or 15 years ago? Fogan said that the racing aspect had put a ceiling on the number of people willing to see films in the series, and that by turning it into a series where car driving ability is just one accept of the film, he hoped to increase the series' audience on Jensen's character. Fagelson edit. Jensen also want to appear in and be integrated to the action in Fall 6 on June 24, 2011. Universal Picture announced that the anticipated sequel was scheduled for release on May 24, 2013. Mortis and Diesel return as producers, and Lent returned to truck in an interview with Box Office. Lynn revealed that he had, after discussion with Diesel, storyboarded previous light and edited a 12-minute fell of Fast 6 before filming was completed on Fast 5. Lynn said he shot the footage, as he was square at the time if there would be a sequel, or if he would be able to direct it, but he wanted to have put on how any sequel would add Musclehead and Muscle Car. Fantastic deserve their own star. Parts are Star Trek, I guess. And the Fast and the Furious movie seems to fit the bill, just like those perennial sacrificed Greek out this saga about superheroic street racers is essentially about friendship. All the fancy Non and Lucius par are just to help render the essential stuff in V that will not embrace a gin audience. It works. I don't think my 10-years-old self could have tolerated Han Solo and Princess Leia kissing at the end of the Return of the JT if not for the consolation of watching the Vietnam War, re-arched by Minotaur space beers. So it is with Fast and Faust 6, which is arguably the most sentiment of the Fast flick. The regular cast members are all either approaching 40 or well into their 40s. When this series started 12 years ago, there were still hard young Hollywood superstars, whoever was a teen, or twin, back then finding in these photogenic baths the epitome of cool is now likely swaying over rent and taxes. F6 wants to give them a little commencement present again to Star Trek 6, which actually put a lump in my throat when it ended by having the TV icon of my youth sign their names across the stars. Yes, F6 is still cool-blooded and brutal enough for the children, a kind of name in the stars. Beyond helps in the opening credit, emoting of moments from all over the series. We glimpse Paul Walker's and V. Diesel, in the early days slightly slimmer. Swifter and lighter of Weiss, we see various beatdowns, jungling bickies and vehicular miscars, set to the thumb of generic hip-hop track. Justin Lin is a playfully bombastic tractor, but this vice as sensibility goes missing in one of the key areas where he could leverage this trash into trash art. The soundtrack, I turned out the title, music animation, Ray Charles and Nora Soft, croning here. We again over the running, scalding ass, slipping and killing this time around the members of the street, racing car. Jacking gang turned a team, came out of retirement to help an international counter. Terrorism Minhan. There are millionaires living in Farf, flung tropical head out. Now, so what could convince them to help the fits? Their homies, their long D, has been photo fit. Among the suspects, Lai is alive apparently. She was V. Diesel's girlfriend in Fast 1 and 4. In the latter, she was presumed skilled by a drug-large inch man when Lady finally showed up alive on screen. There were gaps and murmurs. My fellow movie GS. Now that's what I'm thinking about a long-running franchise. Like this one is about the familiarity and comfort of friendship. It's about disappearances, intervals of grief and longing, entrance, exit, and Grant reunion. If anybody loves this ridiculous cycle of crime operas, it's because of that. The love V. Diesel, memorable mood, charisma, and Paul Walker. Ernest E.A. Blue Eyes framed in the film's most spectacular SH between fire engine red prison bars. They love the horrible R car, charmingly performed Bunter, between San Chris, Lakes Bridge, and Terry Gibson. They love the shy, sweet tear ship. Between Han and GLE, they love the way these show of stock shade with each other and initiate relative new commerce like Dan Jensen, a.k.a. The Rock, and first time at Gina Chrono Harry into their talking fold. They love these tread human things, and as the filmmakers chalk to withhold them at times to force viewers to face the possibility that they might never enjoy them again, and bring them back from the narrative D with an inning flourish vorus. Thea would have Eid, one of these flacks. Every action director should study the way a father almost loses a son in the Desa, the Blee Thief, and an old man almost loses a talk in this Oberto D. heart-stopping and then heartbreaking erasing. Hollywood example is the tearful meeting of donut-eating Flatfoot Al P. and B. Newark cop John M. Lynn at the end of Tart after they are bonded all night over police radio. L.B. Sauce Gleam, Nikita, and the Professional B. Everything on giant matching close-ups late in the game of two people dislie in love facing each other for what could be. The Last Time Val is boring. Your great action movies are about life and the scramble to preserve it, no matter how or who are what threatens to take it away. In this case, the Who is Mustache Trinkle, played by Wisman Lands, looking the A part of Jude Laws, and Lardo Diapo mashed up modern action movies. Focus so much on the scramble pornographically so that they forget the life part. The real trick is to fuse the life and scramble in each moment in the jural cons. Every beautifully human move to save himself tell us exactly why he is worth saving. Securely state of The Art F6 is not a great action movie. It has all the ingredients, including a cost that fluent's infectious group. Chisty, but its delivery is so businesslike, and its action sequence so preoccupied with numbering shock and U-taxes despite Keaton Jackie Chan, leaves of Absor invention that we forget to care until F I never mentioned attack. Speeding the wrong way down a high, we could give me that bind feeling. The second most thrilling scene in the film is a rock diesel tag team wrestling move that drew intentional out our end applause from the audience, but it's trumped by a more scenic moment, a family par, that brings the principal C together for a chord to prayer. It looks like these Farmer Street punks are growing up into a real family, not the conditional teacher kind that a street gang provides. Right on the sill comes a cinder burst of violence surely conceives two pleas. The kids, the once movie executive, cannot imagine sitting still for anything less than murder far. 6 is solid entertainment. But it might have been great if it recognized that a human touch is a rare thing, and when you have it, there's no need to keep clenching it into a fist. This should come as a surprise to anyone, but why does every time I see one of these movies I want to drive as first car? So bad, probably because I don't have that much money to own a Leish vehicle, and you are always wanting to drive at a normal speed while on the road. Sure, fast and 46 implo, you to do not these stunts on your own, but it's just a cool thought. So versus story of the movie, following their successful heist in Rio, Dominic Dr. TRTO, played by V. Diesel, Brian O'Connor, played by Paul Walker, and the rest of the team are living their lives in freedom around the world. especially for Brian and Mia Jordana Prier, as they have welcomed a son. But when a team of mercenary drivers led by Ona, played by Luke Ians, and Dom's Presume's dead girlfriend, Lady Eris, played by Mitchell Rock, as one of his members, is CAU stealing weapon parts that are worth billions. Agit Liamstan. Jensen tracks down Tom to get his team together once again to bring Shone in exchange for full parts for all of them. Back in 2013, I could not believe we were up to 6 movies in the Fast and the Furious series. Crazy. Right after the last installment, Fast 5, came out, nobody expected it to be the most entertaining sequel, since it stitched the entire street racing aspect and focus on the action with these established characters we have grown to care about. And something was stealing me, pursued to get his team back together and help Hobbs to stop Shah and find out about his mysterious person from his past. There are several things about this film that are given Diesel grind up his handful of lines in his familiar deep and Caval Zix. The Rock is given as endless fly of home Kai V. Lair and Cartorian Lee analogies. And Paul Walker still has the sheepish and poish wipe going. The rest of Tom's crew are not asked to do any heavy lifting, and that's a good thing. Neither Song or Crystal Diaz, Bridges are particular good actors, and Terry, Gibson comic act GW old quick. But none of these performances are why people would go to see this film. But I do want to talk about the 2 newcomers to the Fast and Furious part. I have just not the same. But I quite like Luke Ivins. He gives a rock-solid performance there as the main body, while his character is really nothing more than a Thai, and this overall motivation are shallow. Evans brings a pretty meringue quality to the rule, and then there's a Gina Granco can. I just go ahead and say, I love Gina. Ixioho once again. She's tough as nails, and she holds her on among the Moo types, just like Steven. In the movie, high drawer Jin keep with her, within her comfort zone, and never scratches her. Pee her bones. She is one of the high of me, and she gets her scene to shine, but enough about the racing. Fast and Furious 6 is a straightforward action picture built upon some loose jet, spectacular set piece, and more flipping, jumping, and crashing of cars. Then you can count the movie aims to be even more outlish than the previous film, and it succeeds, but it still keeps you CL to the screen as the viewer may amp up with each big sequence. Sure, it's sometime dumb and always over the top. Some of the DCK is high and cheese at it. Finest and the joke often fall flat, but it still deliver the paddle to the metal rear die, and a line rush that has made it such a guilty player. I still say that this film is not as fluid or polished, if you can call any of these movies polished, as Fast 5. But I appreciate that the movie never pretends to be anything other than what it is. The filmmaker know the type of the movie they are making, and there is no pretension or artifice, as all that's the key of the audience as well. If you know what kind of the movie is, this you will know what to expect. Don't think you are getting a film with deeper Theron theme and top-tier performances. Understand that this film and this series is all about the wild tried, and if you are willing to get into the car, you are going to have a good time. Fast 5 attempted, and quite successfully, I might add a root of short for the entire Fast and Furious franchise, turning a series of movies about car racing into an exciting heist film. It was big and brash and sweetie and a complete success. So where do you go from there? Fast and Foo 6 attempts to answer that question by adding an air suffix to all those adjective above beggar pressure. Sweeter fast, L46 is, like Fast 5 and nutritious Trior, just an L. It's the proverbial turbo boost to go bigger, faster, stronger at time that is A. Great thing, but when the NOAC runs out, the track race just turns into a track after the immense of Fast VID TRTO, played by Van Diesel, is relaxing a breezy oceanside property that would not look out of the place on the cover of Travel. Plus layer, he sixes up his new girlfriend Elsa, with considerably less to do in the film that is Fast 5 and monkeys around with a nesty old car engine on his Porsche. He may be a little strong for DRP, but retired like seems to suit a TR. Well, this is until Hobbs D. The Rock Jensen shows up looking for help. And why would I help you half stretto? Because do is got proof that your dead girlfriend LTI as calling Mel Raucus is not all that. In fact, she's alive and working with the bad guys. And what the Fast and 46 Reeves, its engine, slams on the gas. And our team is resembled just even Pry Ochner, who leaves his newborn baby boy and VE form, while he goes to fight dangerous international criminal in the name of discovering. V, there is Buddy's ex-girlfriend, may or may not still be alive. They are chasing down Ona Lands, who is about to get this hands on some super weapon things. And it's really dangerous and Meeg again. And we have got to stop him, and so on, and so forth. The less thought you put into the motivations behind Sean's plan, the better things go. Crash, know that. But before we can do that, we have set up, and then some more setup of particular delight, to Lynn and writer Chris Morgan in the relationship between Dee and Letty, who was left for dead at the end of Fast and Furious. She got amnesia. She still loves her. But what about his new girlfriend? Why is she ping with the bad guys? If this all sounds like an episode of The Fast and to The Furious, the rattle, that's because that exactly what I feels like. Pardon us. If we want our Van Diesel punching things and granting out the lines, not meeting kidding with a girl under a bridge, when the camera whoops rally around Tom and Lady as they share an intimate moment, it's supposed to come off as a tiner moment, but the scene goes on endlessly and pointlessly, and St. Fields is just coffee. And when a scene stands out as a goofy, in a Fast and Furious movie, you know something emesis, where Fast 5 records almost tend to know knowledge of previous Fast and Furious mythology. Fast and Furious 6 seems almost real in it. There are a multitude of callbacks through the previous films, including returning character, he is that guy, and continuing plating, and are nothing more than fan service. Sly, the only service provides is to make audience feel confused, indifferent, or both, but it's the good thing. Thought the movie as a whole cannot quite stand up to the majesty that was Fast 5, and almost perfect mix of the races and the sup. The action sequence in Fast and F6 are both bigger and better than anything we have seen in the franchise to date. Ving D launch himself into a Fing head, but like a big belt. Melee is just one of the many joys of the last act of the film. A breathless 20-minute brawl chase bought a massive cargo plane. Another standout, a brutal gunfight between Russ and Farmer MMA superstar Uner Crano. A delightful addition as Johnson's right-hand woman, while romance and drama had never been the strong suit of the Fast film over-the-top actionist and Fast and Furious. 6 absolutely D on the promise. It's almost impossible not to giggle and hoot along in gee during some of the film's spectacular action sequence. Just look at the photo above. It's a Farmer B model, Terry, flying from a car about to be crashed by a tank of the race car. Speeding down a subway, he makes it It's a good at doing what it does better, but that takes the rest of the film seem stuck in neutral. While Diesel and Walker are technically the star of the film, Mr. The Rock once again proves that he is one of the most charismatic actors working in Hollywood. He is hulking mass of cool trach in under a hour. If he was not returning for Fast and Furious S, it could easily be believed that this film is setting Hops up to be the rightful heir to the franchise. Ian's is not given much to do with this genetic British bad guy character, but able mate, our crew. Part of the endless enjoyability of Fast 5 was it never look itself too seriously, perhaps owing to the success of the film. Fast and Furious 6 starts taking itself a little too seriously, and our most tickling accomplishment coning the aforementioned use of, when Diesel said, as a projectile weapon, when it's good, fast, and 46 is great, but when it's not, it just runs out of gas as a fully loaded action movie. There's nothing terrible special about Fast and Furious 6. It's well made and deliver on all fours, but it does not exactly stand out among others of its kind. And it don't just mean the other F&F movies, but at any loud testin', driv action, flick with stop-up stuns, extended cheese sequence, and the whooping of fist fight. But then why should I expect it to be drastically different movies like this are made for audience who know exactly what they want and who will keep paying to see them, so long as the studio keeps making them. On the other hand, when you can consider Fast and Foo 6 in the 6th installment is an UN-syncable franchise, the short of my cable, it's still able to be this good. And by good, I don't mean it pushes any cinematic boundaries, but rather than it's a fun and entertaining. There's something to be said for a movie that keeps a 12 years old popcorn series going strong. I will not go to the trouble of catching you up to speed on the entire FNFS. The opening take care of, that is a matter of mind knit, or if you are watching this review, you already know what it's about and how it radically and authentically deserves character are connected. All you need is know as the gang is all here. Dom Bryan, Mia, Ramen, Tage Han, and Gassel, otherwise known as the Team. This group are fearless individual has evolved from M Street racers into professional stunt people, not to mention high specialized computer and auto engineers. Nothing seems to shock or scare them, and nothing seems too high. Tech dangerous are insurmountable. That's probably why Agent Hobbs D. Jensen of the Diplomatic Security Service recruit them to trot in an international criminal on Shaw, played by Luke Ivans, an ex-British tolder who is planning on stealing a billion-dollar computer chip that would allow its owner to disable an entire military grid. Of course, the chip only serve as the movies. Mofin, we all know exactly about the action. Shaw and his team have already taken out Arian Convey and his Rose Hobbs and his new partner. Really, that Dom and his team are the best men and women to take them down. Normally, Tom and his crew themselves, criminals, would dismiss the idea of helping out of the authorities. But Hops revealed that Dom's old flame die, who was sply killed in Fast and Furious 2009, is alive and well and a member of the Shaw's team. This is the point where things get personal, and certainly everybody is on board, although they still demand a full pardon of their past transgression. As for Lady, she's apparently a M-tick and doesn't remember who she is, let alone her relationship with Dom, but she can still drive and kick, but with the best of them. And so the movie goes through it. Standard motions are fight there and explosion. and chase scenes there, and qualifies the Fast and F franchise as a member of the action-adventure highest gender instead of the Noir street racing one. It's a short of the Mission Impossible at Ocean 11 on Steed. And just like those movies, Fast and 46 is light in story and character development, but heavy on stus. Action sequence, there are 3 really big parts that take up quite a bit of screen time, especially the climax, but they are adly-po, sponding, and surprisingly coherent. If it take too long, how much of a role director just played in their execution versus a second unit team, who is to say? But whatever the case, the movie lives up to his promise of being an exclusive extravasa. Another plus is that how reads the underlying material. Maybe the filmmaker managed to take it seriously as far as entertainment goes, meaning the do sweep on the course on budget. The actions are not half big, are so implausible they lose credibility within the movies onward. They are intense, agatic, and exciting with big visual and oral payoffs with this in mind. Even I continue to like the FNF movies. I am coos about fusion. State 4 and FUS 7 is already slatter for a 24 release, because it means each SEC will probably get less and less fresh. Granted, the series could take on the qualities of Jams B and potentially go on forever and ever. But even if its quality was to remain high and it profit large, would we really wanted to go that route? For the sake of it ending on a high note and keeping good with its audience, and it is the interest of Romney. And moving on, I think the team should retire before it's too late, or before we get bored. How about instead of giving fans what they already know, they want the filmmaker brainstorm and give the eras that they don't want to know, at least not yet. Perhaps that could be the star of a new franchise that actually stand out amongst his BRE. With Fast and 46, this long-running franchise has become a fully fledged superhero series, complete with memorable, larger-than-life characters, a rich mythology, and huge action sequence that are surprisingly more about character than they are about sheer thrills. This fills is not without its faults, but it also deserves to be comment as a streamling of the idea that the previous H has dealt with it also, an accelerating V. And I'd recommend it if you are looking for something really charting that is full of outrageous spectacle, the end of the previous film, to the story of Fast INFF 6, really post. Crit scenes are about and definite evidence as possible that Fast and Furious is now looking to superhero for inspiration, with the revelation that lie is not as D assumes. In the 4th installment, with hindsight, the films before the 5th one can be seen as clearly building to its big team up, and now that this one is about driving a lost member of the group, while this film is also about taking down criminal mastermind. Ona, it is more concerned with putting a M-Ship's family back together and getting Lady Pack when she belongs. I think viewers may be surprised just how well the theme of family is presented here. It's sadly the best screenplay or acting that you will find, but it definitely does the job at least as well as many of the comic book movies that I am certain I am influenced by the circumstance in which the members of the team are brought back together, are assembled, if you will, is a great deal of fun, and the actors performed well and provided scenes with Homer and Krishma, when Diesel's Dominic TRTO is the real center of all of these stories. It's no surprise that Toki Drift, leaking Diesel, and any narrative importance is the weakest of the franchise, and he is at his best the emphasizing the importance of family and loyalty, while generally being the type of kick as hero, and that is easy to root for Diane Jensen's character. Luke Sops gets an even more important role in Fast in 46 than he did with his introduction in the last movie to continue to stretch the superhero stuff. He is referred to as both Captain America and Small Thor in the film. He valley represent institution and organization that would seek to exploit the ability of the central team. But he is more of a renegade, as he has become convinced of some of the ideas that Dom and his friends value, where I think the film stumbles tough. With It Villain, the character of Shaw is plied to find. On some level, I like the area of a few that is always 2 steps ahead, but taken to a bit of radius. Extend here, I also have a hard time reconcile the notion of a man professing precision to be his key, and then proceeding to run over innocent driver with a tank that should not be considered a spell. It's in all the trailer on a related note. I must say that I am glad that the MLS Falson in the Those SS doesn't go acknowledgeable as the team strangled to protect villains and destruction, and Lai reacts in a fitting way. As she sees, Shaw seems to lose it. Anyway, he is a difficult character to grasp, and I think he causes the film a couple of problems. It ALSL, perhaps a little too long, although a canard says all ever. All that boring. I think the script probably just needed a little tightening up in certain areas. It would make a little more of a cohesive film. There are real shocks and surprise here. And the mid-created scene on this one is just brilliantly silly and cool. It set up a lot for the next film while managing to pull off the unaccepted feat of giving Toki Drift something of a reason to exist. Fast and Furious 6 is also very well paced. It moves out our breakneck speed and only ever passes for our brief moment that allow the character to emphasizes that motivates them along with the expected automotive stun. This is also film full of great hand-to-hand combat. Gina Kino, Joy Teslam, Aris Jensen, and Diesel all get moments to shine as they go up against one another and accidentally truff fight. I really appreciate just how will this team represent the kind of people you don't usually get to be the focus of the big action movie. It's a better than usually film for female characters, and they are all well-rounded figure, and I am certain. It effest the back test. I may be wrong, but I am hope I am not. The coolest F-far between Crano and Raucus, and they are not F-down as secondary to the male character punching each other. This is a martial art at its best. It has other problem with gender, like Grocers S. La Denser, as street races, but the main characters are strongly written. Also, this franchise has a great reflection of a range of different races. I mean, who would not guess that it's best? Raman body dynamic is between Raman and Han. It's an arguably more accurate representation of America than other film provide, and I think these movies are showing Hollywood the way to go. The Big Saint set pieces are as impressive as could be hoped for. It's not more, so it's a shame that a number of them have been more than glimpsed in the trailer, but I think there are few moments that are really truly breathtaking. More importantly, I think this movie has a good understanding of who its characters are and how they relate to one another. It doesn't do it for all the characters, but the center pair are well-defined people that we can relate to. Fast and F6 understand its place in the series and build this character up as heroes that represent the BS of family. It strongly resonate. Yes, I did just recall a Fast and Furious film. Resonate and very entertaining. Justin Lie's past 3 Fast films connect very well and tell a more complete story. that I had accepted them to things look good for the next one too, and I am honestly really looking forward to where it goes and how quickly it gets there. Why Giselle was killed off in Fast and Furious, 6 despise and inning performance by Gallant, and a promising feature for the character Giselle Jar sacrifice herself in Fast and Furious 6. Which BS? The question, why did Cart leave? Fast and Furious. Giselle Cart is a drug smuggler with expert driving skill and a light mark shipmate who was introduced in Fast and Furious. Her job as a CER for truck smuggler, Arur Bra John Artist, comes to a halt when Dominic Tutto, when Diesel sees her, is the ambush, and as a sign of gratitude, she revealed to him the location of Pra's head. Out and they go their separate ways. In Fast 5, the most important movie in the Fast and F franchise, Reveiw, her Giselle develop a romantic relationship with Han Lee, and proves H a great asset to the main team Gar's strong performance. And Fast 5 is why her dead scene came as a surprise. Gauzy let herself fall off the plane in the infamous runway scene in the Fast and 46 to save Han from being in 2013. F and 46 was the 4th film in the franchise to be directed by Justin Lin. The plot of the movie saw Dominic Trotto and Brian O'Connor, team of car thieves, regret to take down a mercenary organization led by Anshar. It continued the Fast and Foolish franchise transitions away from street-like crime stories to larger-than-life action movies. F and F6 was the highest-crossing film in the franchise when it was released, setting the stage for even bigger success of FYS4. 5 largely reinvented the franchise as a Globey, spanning action movie at F7, was both an emotional spin-off to Paul Walker and one of the most financially successful movie ever. Because of this, F and Foo 6 is sometime the fourth and middle child of the more modern Fast movies. However, Fast and Furious introduced several important changes that would have both positive and negative ramifications still filled by the series. Many years later, Fast and Furious 6 proved dead character could return. One of the most significant development in Fast and Furious 6 is the decision to bring back Dom's love interest Letty artist, who had been presented as skilled off in the Fast F and Furious, the 4th movie in the franchise, Fast and Furious 6 Recton, the previous movie, so that lady instead lost her memory and became one of Ona's gang member. It was the first time that the Fast and Fish movies would bring back a seemingly deceased character, but it would not be the last. With Han Letter researed in F9, the plot TSTR out for a soap opera or comic book helped contribute to the feeling that the Fast movies took place in heightened reality where anything could happen. Melrig was also a great presence to have back in the franchise as a necessary counterbalance to the hyper-masculine persona, F. Diesel and Dan Jensen. However, his restriction, and the series continues, use a Fast and Fully Stone to bring back the character eventually contributed to a sense that there were no real stakes in these movies. The Fast and Food 6 set up just Skoffer Han. Fast and 46 also made a major change to the franchise by seeming to conclude the story of and the favorite character introduced in the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. After previously starring in Justin DED feature Better Luck, Tomorrow Han actually died into Drift. But Lin wanted to bring back the character, so the following 3 movies were actually set before the 3rd one. However, this created a somewhat confusing chronology. Fast and 46 helped the series finally move forward in its own timeline by concluding with Han making his fateful trip to Tokyo, the mid-credit scene in Fire and Fistic. Also, Reconda slides H's death showing that he had in fact been killed by dead Shaw and looking for a revenge for his brother. This Reveiw character, a Cleander leading into F7, but also lead to issue down the line, Fast and Furious 6 ending at mid-credit scene, explained following the critical and financial success of the previous entry. Fast and Furious 6 had a lot to live up to, and it mostly succeeded especially in the ending and mid-credit scenes, which not only satisfying are up the film's conflicts, but also perfectly set up the image for the 7th Fast and Furious movie, directed by Justin Lin, Fast and 46, take place 2 years after Dominic DiTertio and his crew successfully pulled off the bank heist in Brazil. In Fast 5, the crew have gone their separate ways, and everyone seems to be doing well. However, Dom and his team are forced back into the game when Luke H.S. in store that a rock British agent named Shah plans on making a device called Nightshed, which has the power to show. All of your country hops asked for help in exchange for a pardon for himself and his crew, which he accepts. However, the mission turns personal, as Dom discovered that his late wife, Letty Artis, is still alive and working for Shah. Everything comes together for a thrilling ending, worthy of the Fast and Furious franchise. The main cast of the movie is Dominic Dome Turturro as Ventil Bryan, O'Connor as Paul Walker, Dean The Rock, Johnson as Luke Hobbs, Lee Artis as Mitchell Rockerus, MTO as Jord Brer, Raman Pai Terry, Gibson, Taga Parker, Chris Ludis, Bridge, H. Solu, S. Kong, Jesse, Jar Gil Dualen, Ness Elsa, on Shah Leopes, Our Villain Rally, Hicks Gina Carraro, Dominic Tratio defeats on and retrieve the computer chips on, and his team attack a military convoy, as it contains a computer chip that he needs to finish construing Nightshade, while Dom and his crew are unsuccessful in stopping Ons. They convince Lai to join their side and betray Shaw with their hands on the computer. Chip Shaw and his band of mercenaries PD a moving plan to flee the country, but are prevented from doing so after Dom and his SCW cash up to them and use the weight of their cars to prevent the plane from taking off. Tom and Luke use the opportunity to board the plane, which leads to one of the best fights seen in the Fast and F franchise, in which they team up to fight and defeat On and his henchman, Klaus Kim, called after Dom, and Luke successfully win their over-the-top first fight. They take the computer chip throw On out of the moving plane, which leaves him in critical condition, and then drive out of the plane before it crashes and explores HS Parent and his crew after successfully preventing Ona from constructing the Nightshed device and accompanying their mission. Dom and his crew return to Los Angeles, where they celebrate with a big barbecue party. Luke arrives at the party to tell Tom that he and his team have been pardoned and that the government will no longer be hunting them down, while this siege between Tom and Luke is awkwardly blocked, since it was affected by the real life fought between Vel and D. Jensen. It had at least did the job of indicating that both two men now have deemed mutual respect and set up their partnership in future movies. And Tom got back together, despite Lai still being unable to remember anything about her past or her relationship with Tom. She cannot deny the strong connection she feels with the man. Therefore, after completing the mission, Letty and Dom decide to get back together and give their relationship another chance. This makes Storr happy, since even after Sply died, she never stopped loving her. Unfortunately, this leaves Storr in an uncomfortable position, as he must break up with Alina, Knaves Elisa Pak, a farmer cop, who was first introduced as a member of H's team from Fast 5 and later entered into a relationship with him after the bank heist in Brazil. Fortunately, Irina holds no crude or ill will against Tom, as she understands that he loves Leechty and that he should be with her. This not only makes Tom happy, but it also showcases that even though their relationship is over, they will always remain close to each other. Han decides to move to Tokyo after Ghastly Yar sacrificed herself at the end of Fast and Furious 6 to save Han from being killed by Adolfson, a member of Shaw's mercenary team. Han tells his group members that he will be going to Tokyo. Han and GLE has talked about wanting to go to Tokyo together before, but with Ghastly now having Sply dead, Han feels compelled more than ever to go and fulfill the promise he made to her, while Ramen and Tage sports on decision. They remind him that no matter where he goes, they will always have him back. Dom and Screw say, grace a barbecue party with chicken and beer that cannot be consumed until someone sees Grace in a prominent tradition that has been featured in almost every Fast and Furious movie, starting with the very first film. However, what is particularly special about the barbecue dinner in Fast and 46 is that not only is the last scene in the movie, but it also in a moment that is earned after stopping on Shaw's evil plans. And Letty having BTU'd with the family, it also makes sense to end this action-packed thrill ride, and friends kicking back and enjoying a meal of chicken and Corona deer. Shaw kills Han in the mid-scenes. In the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Han was supposedly killed in a car accident, and that moment is played again during the mid-career scene of Fast and Foo 6. However, it is revealed that H's death was not an accident, but an assassination attempt raided by a mysterious man who, after the crash, calls Saint and says, "You don't know me, but you are about to." Furious S revealed that this mysterious S is Disha, the brother of Onsha, who is out on a revenge cast to kill Dom and his crew after Biar. They did too, On. However, just like how Han's death was written in the Midgrad of FN46, it would be retconned again in F9 when it is revealed that Han was not actually killed by Dared instead, with the help of Mr. Nobody Han, faked his death and then went into hiding for many years before resurfacing and rejoining Tom SCW in F9, the real meaning of Fast and Furious 6. While the Fast and Furious franchise has been memed for its comically high use of word family, it does play an important thematic role in these movies, especially Fast and Furious 6. The film is about family because not only are D and his crew like a family who support and care for each other throughout the mission, but characters like Lady are reminded of just how powerful and concept of family can be, even despite suffering from amnesia, which is why she ultimately rejoined the C. Overall family is a driving force both plot-wise and thematically, and the result is a very entertaining action movie. So you have just finished watching Fast and F6. You have seen planes and tanks and flip carts and pole workers, alternate Genor, Scar clone, and one of the greatest head parts in the history of human heads. You think it's all over the credit roll, and then they stop ruling. You see a Mercedes driving throughout the streets of Tokyo. If you are a fan of the franchise, you immediately recognize the significance of the Tokyo setting. And you can guess that we are watching a sequence set during the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. If you are a deep fan of the franchise, you recognize the crucial importance of what we are about to see. This is the scene where Han dies. Han has been alive in the last few movies, constantly threatening a move to Tokyo Now he's finally done it. But there's a twist here in Tokyo. Drift Han was racing away from the Drift King when he was hit, apparently by accident, by a Mercedes. This time, thought we see who was driving that Mercedes, and we learn that it was not an accident at all. The man who killed Han closes out fast, and F6 by making a phone call to Dominic. "To, you don't know me yet," he says. "But you will. Perhaps you recognize him. He looks a little bit like this." Yes, the rumors were true, and the rumors were awesome. Yasm Sedum, start of the transporter. Tri-star of the CCK dude, Genie, an accredited British person, is joining the first franchise. Details are scarce about the precise nature of his rule. In the next installment, thought it doesn't take a rocket scientist to guess the Stam is playing the brother of the D, Ansha Shah. Notably mentioned a brother in an earlier scene in Far 6. The internet has generally agreed to call him Ansha, although clearly Bandit Kirsa would be more appropriate. The application for the future of the franchise are huge. F is quickly becoming the N of all modern action movies between Terry Gibson and Jasm Stam. It has colonized the other two contemporary car franchise Transforms and Transporter, while also creating an intable link to Stam's other gang of heroes, franchise The Expendables. The conclusion of Fast and Fistic provides a graceful exit for director Justin Lin, who began the franchise with Tokyo Drift. When asked about the ending by E.W. Lin, said, "I was very happy with the whole jum stum of it all. It feels good to be able to hand off on a positive note with Stam Jing. The Cost the Whole J Stam of it all would be a great name for AAM biography." Likewise, when we asked Dan Jensen about the possibility of Luke Hobbs facing off against the Transporter, he said simply the idea of seeing him and myself on screen going at it, a very intriguing and very interesting. Two styles that would collide extraordinary. Well then, he added less simply. My personal message to that person is Picha Alum, because it will be all the day. A fair Proly FS will be at least partially Avengers movie, as the remaining member of the TRTO gang came out of retirement to avenge the fallen Han. Presumably FS will be at least partially Avengers movie, as the remaining member of the Tractor gang came out of retirement to avenge the fallen H, unless maybe Brother Shah will be hunting them down, forcing the Tractor tribe to go on the run. Will Stam character have this own synthes of car driving? Boss, does this mean that there is going to be a climatic far scene where Stam and Diesel and John have a shirtless shaved head oiled up B-doll, additionally on a Sing oil tanker that is exporting Follow Fast franchise? What did you think of the ending? Where does the Stam reveal rank in the history of Poe? Credit sequel. Tess, what other Cantor action stars would you like to see in the franchise? Mila. Jack as the mysterious Eastern European spy and a crazy car. Tanja as a mysterious Tri-Cal with a crazy car. Scene B as the Shaw's brother, and Bor, Fast and Furious. 6 ending after credit spoiler. So the First and the Furious movie, the First and the Furious 6, we were at the drive-in and there were some people suffering about. So I missed part of the query scene with the Jam Stam incident event. I see the true inciting event in the story as being the moment when Hobbs approaches Dom with the new job and tells him that his girlfriend Lai is still alive. However, the timing is a little earlier, time-wise, the moment when the team assembles, and Tom tells Brian about Lady, is the turning P in the first act. However, when you have a story about and many primary characters, as this one does, there are often quite as few, many inciting on, as the conflict bumps into one character after another, First plot point. The team engaged the master villain Shaw of the first time but ends up losing him. Dom finds Lady only to have her short him the angles with Shaw. Although, obviously, the first plot P is not a great example in itself of the character leaving their first act normal word. But Dom's getting shock offhand by the women he loves is a great moment that deftly backs up the action and forces the character into uncharged territory. First pinch several of Tom's team member engage Lady and H-man. Tom team is beaten shortly, and Lady SCS. This does a nice job of emphasizing both the physical and personal. Stakes the plot turns thanks to the new information picked up during the scenes, indicating she works with Tom's old doctor-running enemy Praga, midpoint in many ways. The scenes in which Brian infills the American prison to talk to Bra, and in which Bra tells him Letty has amnesia, is set up to be the MindBend revolution as such. It's a poor one, since the information is new to Brand, but not to the audience. The following set, Be Seen, in which Dom and LCE at trees, is much better. It doesn't offer much new information either, but at least it moves the plot by showing the effect of Lady's Amissa on both her and D2nd P-Point, Shaw FO Store, and Co. By Gang, after the military, Convey Red is moving the computer piece he needs, instead of hitting the base, as they accepted from here on out it action all the way, which definitely sets up the third plot. Third plot point after being captured, false sense of victory from the protagonist Shaw Neg, his own release by revealing he has kidnapped Mia, Dee's sister and Brian's wife. This naturally forces the character into a place where the personal stakes are steep. High climax. The facing is very tight between the third plot PL and the turning PL into the climax. Almost immediately, the CCT rush to inflate the plane on which Shaw is escaping with Mia. Climatic moment. The plane crashes and Shaw dies, and Dom mercifully walks away with the computer piece Shaw wanted resolution. HS, a secure PN for everyone so that they can go home. Dom's interim girlfriend, Alina, walks away so he can start over with Letty. And this was the ending of the movie, The Fast and Furious 6. Now let's explain. The poster scene of the movie. Just when I thought that things cannot go even better for Fast and F6 in particular, and for the entire franchise overall, there came the awesome closure scene after the credits. Ever since the fourth installment in the Fast and Fest franchise, Fast and Furious 4, aka Fast and Furious 2009, and even in the Fast and Furious 5, aka Fast 5, like most people, I was wondering about the loophole that was created for Han's character. How was it possible keeping alive for so many movies after he was killed off in a very gentic and anti-CTIC way in the Fast and the Furious 3, Tokyo Drift 2006? What will happen to this character in the future Fast? Next, there was a time I even thought that because the Fast and Furious franchise gang so well, its creator will ignore the events from Tokyo Drift just to keep making the franchise. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Deep inside, it was very curious on when will it hammerfall on H to close the arc, loophole, circle that was reopened in movies. 46 when I saw the scene after the credit in Fast and F6, I almost pissed my beast. Like a little girl, this scene was perfect. It's hard to believe that it could be done better than it was. I am really surprised and positively amazed from movies. Likely, but that scene was one of the most awesome closure I had seen in the last few years. I feel like many scenes from Fast and Furious 6 movie were building up for the post-credit scene. I guess that is why it works so well. The director and writer managed to take the genetic accident from Tokyo. Drift and Make get so powerful in the 6th installment by closing the loophole V entry of a major villain to the Fast and Furious 7 movie. If you didn't see FINF F6, yet you should stop reading and stop watching this run. See the movie you can buy Fast and Furious 6 DVD at any shop after seeing the scene itself. It's a lot clear now why GLI had to die in the Fast and Furious 6. Initially, she should think that was released from her First and Furious contract because she is not a very good actress, but after the post-credit S, you understand that she was a trigger for Han's move to Tokyo, and without Han, there is not much that she can do with her character in the next move. If you saw the film already, I bet you are excited as much as I am. Jam Statham's perfect for this role. He appeared in several car chase films, and he did a great job in all of them. It is going to be fascinating seeing him interact with Diesel Walker and The Rock. Seeing Stam in the last scene itself was a major surprise. I didn't see it coming. And when I saw Han dying after a Shah hammered him with the Mercedes, the entire Tokyo Drift movie turned from genetically scared even to one of the surprisingly awesome ending we saw in the last few years. In addition, it reconnect Toki. Drift to Fast INF, his franchise, because period to the F6 post-credit scene Toki Drift felt like a standalone film that had partially nothing to do with the Fast and Furious franchise. Fast and Furious box. Stivity Fast Furious, the complete collection. Fast and Furious to Fast to Furious, the Fast and Furious. Tokyo Drift Fast and Furious. 5 and the Fast and the Furious 6. Why do Hobbs and TRTO stand side by side during the final scene? In the final scene of the Furious 6 over A, the Fast and the Furious 6, Hobbs D, The Rock Jensen, and TRV Diesel enjoy a private moment where they awkwardly say thank you and express some mutual respect. The blocking where they are standing in this scene seems quite integral but very weird. The two muscle Bond stars don't face each other. They stand alongside each other but facing in opposite direction. This gives the scene a super awkward feeling, plus create a white optical illusion in certain shots where the Hobbs look tiny or badly greened in Fast and Furious 6. Revisited, it is the most unrated movie in the Fast saga. The Fast and Furious franchise becomes a glob-bring adventure with the 6th film, which features some of the biggest action sequences yet brings a character back from the DE with Attilo right out of the swap. Opera wraps up a timeline issue and became an even bigger hit than the very popular Fast 5. Our franchise retro pist has reached Furious 6 now, and it's time for this one to be revisited after directing 3 Fast and Furious movies in a row. Justin Lai was not sure if he'd come back for the 6th film, but he knew what he wanted to see in a future sequel, whether the director it or not. While working on the 4th movie, he had an idea for an extended action sequence involving an airplane on a runway, a sequence that would end with the side of a car driven by V-Dye's CRA, Dominic Toretto bursting through the nose of the plane. Lin was so excited by this idea, he even hired digital visualization artist to put together a version of it. The problem was, it would be extremely expensive to film, and it didn't fit into the story of the 4th movie. It didn't fit into Fast 5 either, but Lin knew it would make it into a sequel someday. And if it ended up being checked by someone else, they still have this previous mock-up to match to figure out how to execute it. But as it turns out, Lin was given the chance to bring that sequence to life. Given the choice between directing Furious 6, a terminated sequel or the Highlander remake he closed to go on another ride with Tom and his crew. Now there's dedication to family folks was announced just 2 months after Fast 5 was released. And by the time of that announcement, Lynn was already sign on. Soon after he told BoxOffice.com about the plane sequence, without mentioning that involve a plane. He said, I already have a 12-minute sequence done. I did it just an exercise. I had it done before we were finished with Fast 5. Actually, I really wanted to make sure that the last scene, which I had talked to Win about countless times, I wanted to make sure that has done so. Actually, I story reported it, I previewed it, and I cut it. So, it's funny, when we were in Atlanta shooting 5, I already had the end sequence to 6 done, and that was what I wanted to work towards. Chris Morgan, who wrote the 3 previous installment, was writing this one as well. And the symbol, cost was in peace. That means Diesel, who would also be producing, with Neil H. Mortis was returning to play Horik, but criminal street terror Tom Powbearer would be back as lawman, turning outlaw Bran. O'Connor Jordana Brewer returns as Tom's sister and Brian's wife Mia, but he's given less to do because her character gives birth at the beginning of the movie. Their fast-driving P.S. Roman, Teach Han and GLE, played by Terry Gibson, Chris Lakis, Bridges Song, and Gil Gard were back as well. Past 5, new addition, D. Jensen, a.k.a. The Rock, reprises the role of diplomatic Psy service agent Luke Hobbs, and Elsa is back as Tom's love interest, former police officer Elena. But their rants quickly comes to an end when Dom finds out his girlfriend, always played by Michelle Rodriguez, is still alive. Viewers and the character were led to believe that she died in the 4th movie, but she is still out there, still pulling off high-speed crimes. She just doesn't remember her life with Doms, because the crash we thought killed her has left her. With amnesia, clearly Morgan is a fan of the daytime soap operas. By this time, the franchise has deal with thieves, drug dealers, and criminal kingpins. But part of the goal with Fast 5 has to shake things up and start expanding the score. These were not street racing movies anymore. They could be heist movies. This could be globe-trotting adventures. And with Furious 6, our street racers find themselves in the middle of the story that could have just as easily served as the setup for the jams, Bore, or Mission Possible movie. A farmer soldier named Ona has decided to follow his military career with a life of crime. He has gathered together a team of skilled mercenaries and highly coordinated drivers, including GLTN. They use their vehicles to carry off insane highs that have the authorities baffled, attacking the likes of military convey in the cast to gather components that can be assembled into a nightshare device, a tech bomb that can block an entire communication grid for 24 hours. Stopping them could be a job for a super spy to handle. Instead, it's Luke Hop, who has been chasing Shah across 4 continents and through 12 countries, including Russia. Now he has received information that indicates Shah and his crew are in London, and he knows that he needs a team of skills driver to catch this group of valiant villain. So he turns to the best drivers he knows, Dom Bryan and their friends. If they help catch Shah, their past criminal actions will be pardoned, and in the process, they'll be able to re-beach Knight, Tom, and Lady. So they agree to take on this dangerous mission. Luke Ians was cast as Ona Clara, Pet Kim, CGO Teslim, David Jalla, S.E. Stewart, T.H.S. Lingard, Benjamin Davis, and Matthew Sterling play his many associates. Don't expect any of them to make much of an impact, but some of them do. Have fun. Moments in sequence, another new addition to the cast was former MMA fighter and American gladiator Gina Gano, who was cast as a DSS agent who works with Hops. The idea of making 2 Fast and Furious sequels back-to-back has come up several times. The franchise has gone on, especially when they start talking about wrapping it up, as they already were at this point. There was a moment when Universal has considered having Lynn Peak Part 6 and 7 back-to-back, and he was glad to have the opportunity to close out the franchise in the right way. The first movie would be called The Fast, and the climatic sequence would involve Shaw's crew taking control of the tank. The story would conclude in a follow-up called The Furious, which would end with the plane runway sequence. Lyad and Vision Diesel explained to The Hollywood Reporter with the success of this last one, and the inclusion of so many characters, and the warning of scope when we were sitting down to figure out what would fit into the real estate of number 6. We didn't have enough space. We have to pay off the story. We have to service all of these character relationships. And when we started mapping all that out, it just went beyond 110. The studio said, you cannot fit all the story in one time movie, but then it was decided to condense the story into one damned movie after all. So Charles Cruise does gain control of the Tank of One sequence, but that's not the end. It's followed by the PL runway sequence, which does end the movie. Most of F6 take place in and around London, with the action jumping over to Spain. Late in the running time, the original plan was have the tank tankering right through PID Del Circus, but PID Del Circus turned out to be incredibly difficult to film. In there is a scene where Tom and Leety go throughout the area, and the production was only allowed to stop traffic for 7 minutes at a time to shoot that the filmmakers planned to film the tank action at a replica of PID Circus that they built elsewhere, which would require choosing digital Tory to put the surrounding building in the background. But then they find out they could get access to the unopened highway in the Conry Island. So they decided to use that highway for the tank sequence. Instead, the production also discovered that it was impossible to shoot down other section of London for a chase sequence, so part of the chase were films in Liverpool 200m away from London, and parts were filmed in Glasgow, Scotland, 400 m away, but plenty of shooting was done in the UAL city. The start of the street race scenes were filmed right down the road from the Prime Minister's office. Singer Rita Ora was added into the sequence letter because Vissel had met her and felt that she embodied London. Finding Stat for Lion was not the only change Elle faced on. To this one, he was racing against Time Trout, struggling to keep the movie unshuttle, and it seems like the study was especially flip. And when it came to cutting moment in involving the Han and Giselle characters, but Lynn had a special F-ness for Han, since he was basically introduced in an Edie movie Lyad meet called Buttlock Tomorrow, so he had sure to get the moments he needed with those characters, even if it is me shooting with Song and Gold ate it off. True, he did have to drop a motorcycle chase that would have involved ghastly thwits, another complication across when P.O. Walker suffered an ACL injury. During filmmaking, they had to shoot around any moments of brand action while waiting for him to heal. The race against time continued in post-production, which Lynn be given just 12 weeks to complete it. Look, a large team that include 5 editors, but he got it done. Furious 6 didn't turn out quite as well as the game-changing Fast 5 Day. but it's a serviceable attempt at giving the audience more of what they liked about the previous films. Ona is not a particularly interesting villain, and this PL to put together a night share device doesn't mean much. This is something Lynn was very aware of during filming, but adventure film thrive on what are called memes, something that keeps the story moving and motivates the characters. The villains want to get their hands on it. The heroes want to stop them from using it. But the object itself doesn't really matter. The night share device is such an irrelevant mock-F again. Lynn made sure the name is only mentioned once in the film. All we need to know is that Shah is a bad guy, and he wants to do something bad, which Dom and his cohorts cannot let happen. The important part of the story is the personal side of it. Shah found Lady when he was in vulnerable position in a hospital suffering from anemia. Now he has her on his team, and Dom needs to get her back. The latest story is completely ridiculous, but it gives the viewers something to care about in the midst of all the action, where we get to see the destruction of a couple-handed vehicles, and the action is what makes the movie worth watching. We get multiple short CS cases, races, and fire scenes. The sequence that involves a tank rushing cars on the highway is a standout. But so is Update Chess TR London, where Eshe drives something referred to as the flip car, a Formula One racing car that has been modified with a ramp on the front so it can drive straight into other vehicle and sun. Then flipping through the air, Joe Teslim gets to show off his martial arts, skilled in a fun fight, where not even the combined forces of Han and Ramen can take them down, and ready and let it take each other on in a brawl that took 3 days to film towards the end. We get to see Tom and Hobbs team up in a fight against Shah, and character played by hawking bodybuilder Kim K, and it all builds up to that plane runaway sequence that Lynn was so attic about it take place completely outside of reality. So much happens during the sequence, the runway would have to be longer than any runway. In the world, estimate range from 18 to 29 mil. The longest runway existence is just under 3.5 mil. But it's fun to watch. That's not the only indication in Furious 6 that the franchise is losing touch with any sense of reality. There's also a moment, like Hop, jumping onto Eshe's flip car from an overpass, Dom getting shot in the chest and being able to shrug it off, and most observer, Fall D, crashing a car to launch himself through the air so he can have a conclusion, with Li, who was being launched into the air by a crash of her own. Their flight comes to an end with them smashing down onto the windshield of another vehicle. Apparently F, from great heights, are being thrown through the air at great speed. Will not result in injury just as long as you have a car. To Kai on your landing, there are some nice characters. Moment in there, the emotional dessert just came from the soap. Oprah story involving Dom Lady and Alina Lynn also made sure to include moments that deal with Han and Castle's relationship, which is building up to tragedy. The events of the 4th, 5th, and 6th films all take place before the 3rd movie, Tokyo Drift, which is KH first entered the picture hanging out in Tokyo by himself. At the end of F6, we catch up to Tokyo Drift, and we find out why Gessel has not with Anne anymore. At that time, it's heartbreaking. But there are also some entertaining moments of Homer, with one of the best example being an interaction Teach and Hops have with a snorty actioner. The story of Furious 6 has plenty of issues that can be picked apart, and it seems like Lynn and Morgan were not quite sure what to do. And Brian, this time around, trying to find out how Lady got involved with Shaw, leads back to the villain of the 4-movie Brawl, played by John Artist, to get the whole story. Brian contacts his former FBI associate, Sassus, played by Shia Baum, and gets himself sent to prison so that he can question Brawl. There seems like an unnecessary waste of time in a movie that's overlong at 131 minutes. The Lady. Information could have been delivered in a quicker way, but it allows Brand to contribute something to the story. The title on screen is Furious 6, but an online poll indication the movie gears prefer the title Fast and F6, so that's what was used as marketing material. Universal gave the film a memorable day weekend release in May of 2013 and was rewarded with the highest opening in the franchise. Yet, the film made $7 million in the United States over those 4 days on its way to domestic. Total of $239 million, the international member were also massive, ending up just under $541 million, are made on a budget of $160 million, with another $100 million are going towards marketing. First 6 made almost $790 million at the global box office, while Fast 5 is still the most well-regarded for the SQL First 6, best at box office by almost $160 million when the time came for the film to reach Blu-ray. Shinvera released part a theatrical cut and an extended cut that's about 54 seconds longer, for the most part the extending cut just puts back in moments for violence that had to be trimmed to achieve a PG-13 rating. More punches, kicks, and head bars. First 6 was so successful. Universal wanted another sequel as quickly as possible, and the filmmaker had built the setup for the next sequel into this one. There's a mid-credit scene that takes place during the chase scene where Han was killed in Tokyo Drift. This revealed the car that crashed into Han was not driven by a random to his John. Instead, it was being driven by on Shaw's brother Deer. Shaw, played in a quick cameo by Jasam Stemdird, obviously has incredible intuition and timing. He was able to crash into Han in the right place at the right time. During that chase scene, he internationally killed Han to avenge his brother, and he is going after Dominic Tarko. Next, the studio put the sequel on the fast track to begin filming in summer of 2013, so it could be released in the summer of 2014. If Lin came back to track, that would mean he would have to begin pre-production on Part 7 while still in post-production on 6. Hisaf, the quality of 7 would suffer if he were to do that, so he decided to step away from the franchise. Ending his 4 films take off Fast and Furious movies in their search for a new tractor universes, turned to someone who was best known for working in the horror genre. Jam SW took the harm of story about Jay Stam tracking down our street racing heroes, but the film ended up being delayed a year when tragedy struck in the middle of production, and we will be talking about that in the next episode of Revisit. It back in 2001, the First and the Furious put V and Poe Walker on the map like never before with this street racing action flick. Director Rob Kahn likely did know that he was about to launch one of the biggest film franchise of the 21st century. More than that, there's no way that Vaca or Diesel had any clue themselves. And yet, with 9SQL, a spin-off, and a children's animated series, the Fast and F franchise has grown well beyond expectation. But did you know that the original film could have ended a bit differently? Had Kohan and company struck with this ultimate ending, it may have changed the franchise drastically moving forward in the deleted ending of the Fast and the Furious title, moving out. Brian O'Connor is let go by the Los Angeles Police Department, who for some reason opt not to press charges against their court officer, but instead of going home and figuring out his next move, Brian is shuttled to the Trotto house where he finds Mia, packing things up in the garage ta. He cannot help but ask if she knows where Tom is. The subject quickly changes to their relationship because of BR betrayal. Any Janine feeling Mia F for the guy, or Mudlet, and she is unsure if she can trust him again. Of course, Brian fight for her anyway, and the scenes end with a hopeful finish that allude to a future reconciliation after everything they had pinned and Bran's willingness to help Tom, despite his duties as a cop. It makes sense that Mia would consider taking him back, even after such a big lie also Bran offers to help her with, backing up the place, but then stands sadly by as the camera pans over to the Los Angeles skyline, which is strange and amusing where the two of them would have gone. After this is uncertain, but this ending would have no doubt made Too Fast, Too Furious a different movie entirely. Maybe that would have been a good thing, as the Fast and Furious, since the original film, actually ends with Brian hanging the keys to this Supra after Neely deciding to arrest him. The pair come to a mutual understanding, and the street racer gets away without another word. A post-credit scene revealed that Tom got away, having fled to Mexico, but we don't hear from Brian again this time around. In fact, Mia is not seen again until the fourth movie, Fast and Furious, which is also the next picture in the series, to reunite Bran and Dom, who both appear independently during the third and fourth movie. Brian and Mia being together could have shifted the franchise, ending the Fast and Furious with Brian and Mia together could have likely shifted the franchise in an entirely new direction. The starter Too Fast and Too Furious take BR to Miami, where he makes his living as a street retrayer before being considered by the FBI to take down a truck lot named Carter Varon, played by Yellow ST's very own Clue, hoster the sequel the only and not to feature V Diesels in any capacity, ended up introducing recording character to the franchise. And while it's Clyde, the biggest ling in the series, it has proved important in the meantime, but have there. Well, APD just let BR go. None of it would have just happened fast. And Foo 6, alternatively known as Foo 6, are Fast 6 in our 2013 American action film. Tread by Justin Lai and written by Chris Morgan, it is the sixth installment in the Fast and Furious franchise. Fast and 46 follows a professional criminal gang led by Dominic Tartot, who are offered amnesty for their crimes by U.S. Diplomatic Society Service DSS agent Luke Hobbs in exchange for helping him take down a skilled mercenary organization led by Ona, one member of which Isro, his farmer lover, Leigh Ortiz. After departing from the street racing team of previous swims, in Fast 5, to great commercial and critical success, developer approached Fast and F6 with the aim to transform the franchise, further incorporating elements of spy and adventure film in the hopes of increasing audience numbers. Further pre-production began in April 2011, and principal photography began in London, England in July 2012. And featured several international filming locations, including the Conley Island, Glasgow, and Los Angeles first and F6 first opened in the United Kingdom on May 17, 2013, and was released internationally on May 24, 2013. It achieved financial success, starting box office record as the second highest grossing film, released in 2013, the second highest grossing film in the Universal Study history. and it surpasses Fast 5 to become the highest-crossing film in the franchise. Fast and Furiously crossed over $788 million worldwide, ranking in number 63 on the all-time worldwide list of highest crossing. Film's Fast and Furious 6 receives mostly positive reviews, with critics highlighting the liable cost action sequence, L-struction, and the affability to immerse the audience in the high-speed juices and conflict between the two opposing gangs. However, many were critical for the film dialogue and the scene's character. Precision, a sequel F7 released in April 2015, eventually surprises Fast, and F6 as the franchise's highest-crossing film, earning over $1.5 billion worldwide. Fast and Furious, 6 Fast 5, Pirate of the Caribbean at Towards End, The Day of AG Tomorrow, F6 The Last Word. The Hangover Part 3 has somehow improved, Gang from nearly making it, and the final 8 film in the D-Line's most valuable blockbuster movie, meant Face Off today. This is the third of our fourth quarter-final matchup, and for the first time we reveal the number behind the numbers that show just how profitable a movie really is. This amount to an external S-ship within Universal Picture between the stud, most depend franchise and its next one, Kangaroo, and bunch of adorable meaners in the Eastbeck M4 outmuscle, the Muscle Scar, and the cost of the Fast Soar, including V-Diesel, Giant P.A. Vaker, J-Stam, and Terracy. Luckily for the Minions, that doesn't involve Punch, Depressant, gone the box office score. Here is how the two fill project and revenue and cost. The bottom line, F6 got there by besting another animated film in the 11 Cs, The Croc's Despicable Me 2. GPED 14, The Sherrick Into Darkness, while Despicable Me to short significant improvement over its best film, Far 6, has steadily built its cross to the point where it Sixfeld was the highest crosser, both domestically and overseas. But here is where the Minion Dever are heat on. For $788 million in global box office game at a high price. The net production cost was $260 million based per hour expert, and a track on another $15 million for global PNAA and $34 million in talent participations, contrast to the Despicable Me to $970 million in global box office on an $76 million budget, and over with $144 million in global PNA cost. And it is not hard to see why Cost CEO Steve Barra has called Despicable Me to the most part of Table Universe film of all time. It also, and the third highest crossing Universal film of all time on the domestic font, E.T. and Jurassic Park beat it, and second biggest global crosser behind Jurassic Park, with enjoyed a 3D release, Fast and Furious 6. Total gross revenue were $678 million, but its high budget and participation left its profit at $35.1 million to Universal, earning a total cash-on-cash return of $1.25. Despicable Me to $868 million total. Cross revenue amount to a $394.5 million profit margin for Universal, and a total cash-on-cash return for $1.83 million. Famous stunt plate for Anna's Flipkart always tells the fams, vehicle designer with development. A car capable of driving headfast into moving vehicle and flipping them into the air, MRI. And his team designed a fully function low to the ground for more racing car, with a ramp on its front that allowed it to catapult other cars into the air, while keeping the flip-C driver safe for Rox and Kranos fights in the London's underground. Producers refused to let the part attempts to stunt be their seats eat its bottle over a stair rail and down a stairwell. Fearing a serious injury would Daryl filming starred women perform the particle stunt. Morgan's script ration for the fight was described as a cat fight on Strart, but Russ provided an input to turn it into more of a street fight. RER gets said originally in the script, it was a lot more Terminator-esque to far FES to be believed. Things just happened too quick. And then I'm on top just in ad hide, out best to get it. More realistic, I was like, this women needs to kick my ass. Rodriguez and Gano rear their fight geography over 2 months with train fighter Crano, undergang extra practice to ensure her strikes looked grapple, without hitting hard enough to harm her Jeeds under the direction of fight. Shepper Olivia S. Ryder, the fight was designed to be brutal, but realistic, representing Coronoscope with fight training and Rock Street fighting, the Parade Explosion Shockleers Tom's team. In combined on-set pillars that could be detonated alongside dust mines, which could be used as a reference for the digital artist to create the appearances of the structuring, sinking into itself a scene involving Aeon character. Kamening Aonk was originally intended to use CGI to spat the vehicle-crushing cars along a Spanish highway, but the final scene used practical effect as the tank really ran over approximately 250 cars. During filming, the scene was shot over a 3-number stretch of highway in TFI line with holiday rests that had to be digitally moved to create a desolate appearances. The segment funnel that seized ramen leap to a nearby car, and the tag flip was created digitally. The scene featuring Diesel smashing this car through the nose of a Soviet-era cargo aircraft during takeoff was convinced by Lin while producing Fast and Furious in 2009. At the time, the STS was too expensive to film and did not fit into the film story, but Lon commissioned digital pre-visualization artist to develop a mocha for the area.